Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're taking you on a bit of an aerial journey into the world of Colorado aviation.
Yeah, but it's more than just planes and runways.
Exactly. Our source material is the July 2025 edition of the Colorado Pilots Association's Flight Lines newsletter.
And that newsletter really gives you a window into this passionate community.
Right. Our mission today is to kind of pull out the most important insights, maybe some surprising facts.
And just to help understand that mix of, well, policy, community, and just the adventure of flying.
That's it. It's quite a blend.
It really is. And this source, it offers such a rich variety, doesn't it?
Totally. You've got these big regulatory changes coming down the pike that pilots need to know about.
And then you have these really vivid personal stories, travel logs. It's all in there.
And somehow they all connect, right, to paint this picture of what flying is all about.
Precisely. A really vibrant picture.
Okay, so let's kick things off with some big news. It's from The President's Corner by Adrian Nye.
Ah, yes, the Mosaic rule.
Exactly. He's talking about the FAA's final rule for Mosaic. That's the modernization of light sport rules. Apparently, it might drop during Oshkosh.
Which would be huge timing. And yeah, Mosaic, it sounds a bit technical, maybe dry.
A little bit, like government jargon.
Right. But it's actually potentially a massive deal for pilots, a real game changer.
So what's the promise here? What does Mosaic actually do?
Well, in simple terms, it promises a dramatic increase in the utility of the light sport category, like a really big jump.
Okay. How so?
It could allow larger aircraft, faster ones, even heavier ones into that category.
Heavier? Like what kind of aircraft are we talking?
Get this, under the anticipated rules, something like a Cessna 182 could potentially qualify as a light sport aircraft.
Wow. A 182. That's a pretty capable plane.
Exactly. And think about what that means. It's not just about bigger planes. It could be a whole philosophical shift, you know?
How do you mean?
More trust in pilots, maybe. Self-certification for a wider range of aircraft could really open things up, boost innovation. And the operating limitations for sport pilots would be less strict, too.
So break it down for us. What's the practical benefit for a pilot on the ground? Or rather, wanting to get in the air?
Okay, the big one. Potentially operating more types of aircraft without needing a full FAA medical certificate or even basic med.
Just a driver's license and medical self-certification.
That's the idea, a much lower hurdle. Adrian Nye mentions his own medical challenges, actually.
Ah, so it's personal for him, too.
Yeah, and you can feel his hope that this could lead to more innovation, maybe even lower costs in aviation eventually.
That makes sense.
And, if we zoom out a bit, Nye makes this really interesting comparison.
Oh, yeah. To what?
To gliders. Think about it. Gliders operate totally safely without any medical certification.
Huh. I never really thought about that.
But flying gliders is demanding. Physically demanding, mentally demanding.
Stern-lulling. Right. Constantly making decisions.
Exactly. And handling them on the ground, no go-rounds on landing. It's challenging stuff.
So the point is...
Well, it kind of raises the questions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe all that paperwork isn't the only way to ensure safety.
You mean like the honor system, pilot judgment?
Yeah, and just basic self-preservation. Maybe those things count for more than we sometimes acknowledge in the regulations. It's food for thought, anyway.
Definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit from policy, let's talk community.
Right, because aviation is huge on community.
And the Colorado Pilots Association, the CPA, they're going to be at EAA AirVenture Oshkosh this year, 2025.
Yep, sharing a booth again with the CDOT Aviation Division.
And the booth is bigger this year.
Twice as big, apparently. They mentioned needing volunteers.
Why so big? High demand?
Seems like it. Last year, they said the booth was just swamped. Tons of pilots wanting to learn about flying in the Colorado Rockies.
I can imagine. Mountain flying is serious business.
It is, which actually brings us to another point.
The mountain flying course.
Exactly. The CPA has this mountain flying and high elevation airport operations course.
Yeah, and it's important because...
Well, CPA actually developed it way back in '86. And it's taught by pilots who live here, who fly the mountains constantly.
So real-world experience.
The best kind. Look, the accident stats, sadly, they show that pilots without specific mountain training can get into trouble fast. Conditions change, performance drops.
So this course gives them the skills they need.
Precisely. Knowledge, skills, capability. It makes flying in the mountains significantly safer.
Yeah.
They've got dates coming up too, August 16th and September 27th.
Good to know. And speaking of the CPA and community, they made a change to their membership directory.
Yeah, a small but I think important thing.
Okay.
They decided back in January to make it opt-in only.
For privacy reasons.
Yep, just protecting members' personal info
Yeah.
shows they're thinking about that stuff.
Nice touch. And there's another event mentioned too, right? The CPA presents.
Uh-huh. In July, they've got Mr. Fred Martin talking about Colorado heroes of the India-China airlift.
Oh, interesting. Sounds like a bit of history.
Yeah, shining a light on a perhaps lesser-known part of aviation
Yeah.
history connected to Colorado.
Okay, now, has a piece I really enjoyed, Sarah Barkley's My Backyard.
Oh, yeah, that was fantastic. Really captures something special.
Doesn't it? It's this, like, almost poetic look at just living next to an airport, the daily rhythm of it.
She paints such a vivid picture. You know, the first plane climbing out at 6:15 a.m.
While a deer is hopping the fence.
Right. And there's already a Satabri out practicing wheel landings. It's just
Yeah.
life happening.
And the variety of planes she sees.
Incredible, isn't it? In just 1 week, a Citation X-Jet, a Spitfire,
A Spitfire, wow.
and an Antonov biplane. It's quite the view from her backyard.
And it's not just the planes, it's the sounds, the feeling, a meadowlark singing, snow melting.
That simple joy she describes, waving at a yellow Super Cub towing a glider, feeling like a kid again.
Yeah, and her best commute in town with no traffic lights. I'm jealous.
Me too.
Ugh.
Then later in the day, you know, summer students are doing pattern work.
And she's judging their landings over coffee.
Playfully, of course. And then there's this candy apple red pits with a Messerschmitt spinner.
Doing aerobatics.
Pulling off a good-looking trick rollout, she says. And a Yak 55M climbing like crazy.
How fast?
3 to 200 feet a minute. She jokes it's pretending she's an F-18.
Love that.
And the day just winds down beautifully. Lenticular clouds over the mountains.
Sliders catching the lift. Like that duo discus with the amazing glide ratio.
40 to 1. Incredible machines.
Yeah.
Then the Barons and Cessna 421s coming back from charter flights.
A Waco taper wing doing touch and goes.
And finally, the runway lights come on, and she mentions Merlin's the birds, not the engines riding the evening lift.
It's just a perfect snapshot. A great day in a great backyard. Really shows how aviation can just be part of the fabric of life.
A really wonderful perspective. It makes you appreciate those small airports.
It really does. Okay, so from that daily beauty, let's look at some bigger adventures. The CPA fly-ins.
Ah, yes, the On the Horizon section.
Yeah.
They've got some great trips planned.
First up, Alamogordo, New Mexico. That's September 12th to 14th.
Right, and it sounds packed. A tour and a movie at the New Mexico Museum of Space History.
Space Hall of Fame Planetarium. Sounds cool.
Definitely. And then there's White Sands National Park,
The Gypsum Dunes.
the world's largest field of them. And what's really wild is the sand stays cool, even when it's hot out.
No way.
Yeah. Plus, a quirky stop, McGinn's Pistachio Farm,
Home of the world's largest pistachio, seriously.
apparently.
Uh.
And pistachio ice cream, which sounds pretty good right now, actually.
Huh? Sounds like a fun mix of science and, giant nuts.
And the Tularosa Basin Museum, too. So, history, space, nature.
Got it. Okay, next. Nucla, Colorado, end of September.
Yep, September 26th to 28th. The theme is the colony at Pinion.
Sounds historical.
Very much so. Learning about Nucla's history, the Colorado Cooperative Company. They're visiting the Rimrocker Historical Society.
And taking a drive.
A scenic one, yeah. Seeing old ditch camps, the historic town of Pinion, and the Cottonwood Siphon.
Which
Once the largest trestle in the U.S., part of this huge irrigation project built through the mountains.
Wow. Imagine building that back then.
Exactly. The newsletter mentions the daunting task of manually constructing it. Puts things in perspective.
For sure. Anything else at Nucla?
An evening presentation from the Apple Core Project. They preserve heirloom apple trees. And a Heritage Festival connection.
Sounds fascinating. Oh, and a note about lodging.
Right, the Vestal House is booked, but the host, Amy Tooker, can help find Airbnbs nearby. Good info to have.
Always good to plan ahead. Okay, one more planned trip mentioned. Hutchinson, Kansas in October.
Yeah, October 10th to 12th,
Yeah.
but this one's already full.
Ah, popular. Still worth hearing what they're doing.
Absolutely. Gives you an idea of the kind of trips they run. The big draw is the Kansas Cosmosphere.
What's special about that?
Well, apparently, the NASA Artemis II crew called it the best space museum on planet Earth.
Whoa, high praise.
It really is. Second only to the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum for U.S. space artifacts. They have the actual Apollo 13 Odyssey command module.
The actual one?
Yep. And an SR-71 Blackbird. Amazing stuff.
Incredible. What else in Hutchinson?
The Strataka Salt Museum, it's underground, like 650 feet down.
Wow, an adventure.
Definitely. And the Clay Works, an art gallery that supports individuals with disabilities. So space, underground exploration, art, A really diverse trip.
You can see why it filled up fast. These aren't just fly-ins, they're like curated adventures.
That's a good way to put it. Real immersion.
Okay, so those are upcoming. Now let's unpack the That's a Wrap section, look back at recent trips.
Right, celebrating the adventures already had. First up, Durango, Colorado. End of May, beginning of June.
How was that one?
Sounds like it was fantastic. Spectacular weather, 10 planes, 23 people.
Nice turnout. What did they do?
Flew into Animas Air Park, rode e-bikes up to Fort Lewis College for amazing views of the San Juans.
Beautiful area.
Totally. Cruised the Animas River Trail and had a big cowboy dinner at the Bardee Chuck Wagon Supper Show.
Classic Colorado experience.
Definitely. But maybe the highlight was driving the $1 Million Highway up to Silverton.
Oh, man. That road is something else.
Isn't it? Crossing Coalbank Pass over 10,600 feet and Molas Pass over 10,900 feet.
Same route as the Iron Horse bike race, right? Where cyclists race the train.
That's the one. Just breathtaking scenery. And in Silverton, they toured the old 100 Gold Mine.
Went inside.
Yeah, rode a 1940s mine train 1,500 feet into Galena Mountain, guided by a lifelong miner. That's perspective. And visited the Mayflower Mill, too.
Sounds like a really immersive trip into history and scenery.
For sure. A great blend.
Okay, next recap. Hot Springs, South Dakota, mid-June.
Right. This one was described as more open format, kind of a yet-to-be-discovered gem.
Meaning people could choose their own activities more.
Seems like it. Folks enjoyed Wind Cave National Park, the Moccasin Springs Spa, checking out mammoth fossils. Lots of options.
That's relaxing. Any challenges?
They mentioned some minor transportation hiccups, but everyone cooperated and worked it out. Good group dynamic.
That's always key on trips like this.
Absolutely. Yeah. And interestingly, they noted the arrival weather was marginal, questionable, but it worked out okay.
So a real-world example of...
That safety concept.
Yeah.
Depart in good weather, have a look if conditions ahead are maybe flyable, but be ready to turn back. It validated that approach for them.
Smart flying. And the town slogan.
Hot Springs, but it's a cool place.
Ah, nice. Okay, final recap. Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Late June.
Yeah, June 25th to 27th. Sounds like another winner.
Highlights. Floating restaurant.
That was definitely one private menu on a floating restaurant on Lake Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
Pretty sweet. I sense a bigger highlight coming.
You sense correctly. What's truly fascinating, the real kicker,
Yeah.
was spending 2.5 hours in person with Burt Rutan and his wife.
The Burt Rutan, legendary aircraft designer.
The one and only. Including a tour of their private hangar and seeing his latest aircraft creation up close.
Get out. That's incredible. Yeah. The newsletter literally says, fascinating, with 2 exclamation points. I mean, talk about a unique experience.
That's beyond unique. That's like aviation royalty. What an opportunity.
Absolutely unforgettable for anyone interested in aerospace innovation.
Wow. Okay, so beyond these amazing fly-ins and recaps, the newsletter mentions other ways to connect too, right?
Yeah, just briefly, the Teo Aviation Events brief on page 5 lists other things happening in July.
Like what?
Other EAA chapter fly-ins. There's one Granby, one up in Scottsbluff, Nebraska that Colorado folks might go to.
Mm-hmm.
The Kelly Air Park fly-in breakfast.
And that Italian car show.
Right. Automezzi XXXV. It's a celebration of Italian motoring, but it features vintage airplanes too. Kind of a cool crossover.
Definitely different. And there were some tours mentioned.
Huh? Exclusive CPA-sponsored tours. One of the Trecon.
That's the approach control, right, near the airport.
Exactly. Terminal radar approach control.
Yeah.
And another tour, the Denver RRTCC.
The center, handling the high-altitude traffic.
Right. Area Traffic Control Center.
Yeah.
So opportunities to see different parts of the whole air traffic system in action. Really interesting stuff.
So, I mean, when you step back and look at this one newsletter, we've covered a ton.
We really have. From huge potential policy shifts like Mosaic,
to the community spirit, like at Oshkosh or in those vital safety courses.
to just the pure joy of watching planes, like in Sarah Barclay's piece.
And then these incredible adventures, planned and past, all over the place. Durango, Idaho, New Mexico.
It's quite a range.
So what's the takeaway here? What does this all mean for you, our listener?
Well, I think it really highlights how crucial associations like the CPA are. They're kind of the glue, you know?
Fostering that whole ecosystem.
Yeah. Learning, safety, shared passion.
Yeah.
It all comes together there. And it also reminds us, I think, that knowledge is great, but it's most valuable when you actually understand it, apply it.
Critical thinking, maybe.
Yeah.
Especially with so much info out there.
Exactly. You need to be able to sift through it, figure out what matters for you.
Makes sense. And maybe a final thought to leave folks with.
Go for it.
Reading all this, especially about the deep community and unique experiences, It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other overlooked communities or niche groups are out there in your own interests?
Hmm. Like hidden worlds waiting to be discovered?
Yeah, offering these kinds of rich, maybe surprising experiences if you just know where to look or who to connect with, something to think about.